Welcome back, everybody, to the Movie NP, the vlog where I review movies and provide the success tips that we can learn from those films. Tonight's film is going to be One Battle After Another, and I'm going to do something special tonight. I've read The Let Them Theory, one of the New York Times bestsellers by Mel Robbins, and I'm going to use the Let Them Theory as the foundation for the success tips that we find in the film. So before we jump into the film, let me give you a little information about what the Let Them Theory is all about and why this is a huge game changer. Mel Robbins theorizes that most stress, resentment, anxiety, and burnout comes from trying to control other people's behaviors, opinions, and reactions. The Let Them Theory provides 11 key takeaways that immediately reduce emotional overload. The core idea is that you don't need to fix other people. You need to focus on yourself. So now let's dive into the film One Battle After Another. It is rated R. It's 2 hours and 41 minutes long. It has an IMDb rating of 7.9 out of 10 and a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 95%. It falls into the genres of dark comedy, political thriller, action, and crime. It's currently available to watch on HBO Max and Fandango at home. It's directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, and it's written by Paul Thomas Anderson and Thomas Pynchon. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio as Ghetto Pat / Bob, Tiana Taylor as Perfidia Beverly Hills, Sean Penn as Stephen J. Lockjaw, and Chase Infinity as Charlene / Willa. The basic plot here is that 16 years after Ghetto Pat and his daughter Charlene have gone into hiding, they've been tracked down by Lockjaw, who kidnaps Charlene. It then becomes a thrilling race against the clock to save his daughter. So basically this is the plot of Taken, but with a washed up, stoned ex-revolutionary who's trying to find his daughter. Here's my reaction and thoughts on the film. I agree with the IMDb rating of 7.9 out of 10, but I do not agree with the Rotten Tomatoes rating of 95%. Rotten Tomatoes also has a popcorn rating, which is a rating by the fans, and that's at 85%. So I would lean a little closer to that. So there's several reasons why I would give this a lower rating than 95%. First and foremost, it's way too long. Again, I feel like I could have done what this movie did in 90 minutes versus 2 hours and 41 minutes. Also, within the first few minutes of the film, within the first probably 15 minutes of the film, I knew where the plot was going, and that was a little disappointing. And here's why, and I think here's what I would have done. The reason why I think it was so easy to figure out the plot is they spend a ton of time setting up the history of what happened 16 years ago. What I would have done is I would have started with present day, and I would have done the history in flashbacks so that it was a little bit more surprising of what the big plot twist was in the film. And I know you don't understand what I'm saying right now, but when you check out the film, you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. So the big focus of the film is it is a social and political commentary about abuse, corruption of power, racial tensions, immigration, rebellion versus the existing power structure, individual rights / freedoms versus policy, how absolute power or power unchecked corrupts absolutely, and the cyclic conflicts that will never be won. To sum this all up in one sentence, One Battle After Another is about the emotional cost of control and the freedom that comes when you stop participating in fights that were never meant to be won. And this is exactly why the film pairs very well with the Let Them Theory, is because both argue the same truth from different angles. Whereas the film shows you what happens when you don't let go, the book explains how to let go and the benefits of doing so. So here are the 10 success tips that we can learn from One Battle After Another through the lens of Mel Robbins' groundbreaking book, the let them theory. Success tip number 1 is stop fighting yourself over other people's perceptions. You don't need to win the narrative to win your life. We see this in the film, particularly with Lockjaw, and how he tries to hide the fact that he has a relationship with a black woman and that he has a mixed race child. Now, I don't believe that he would ever be able to rectify the relationship with him and Perfidia. However, if he wanted to have a relationship with Willa, I believe that would have been possible. However, if he would have put a little bit of work into it, I'm sure that he would have had a very wonderful father-daughter relationship with Willa. But instead, he tried to hide the fact, which spiraled him down to his demise. This aligns with the book because one of the core concepts is to let them misunderstand you. Clarity comes from action, not approval. You don't need their approval to move forward. Who cares? Let them judge you. You don't need anyone's approval to move forward. By not caring and shifting your energy from worrying about what they think about you to what you're doing, you can then break free and move forward. And here's a wonderful quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that exemplifies this. What other people think of me is none of my business. Success tip number 2 is accepting that resistance is part of growth. Pushback does not mean that you're wrong. It simply means that you are changing and growing. The book aligns with the film here because the title of the film illustrates it. One battle after another. Sometimes it seems like when we grow, it seems like everything is a challenge, everything is a battle. But the key element of the book is let them resist you, because growth is not democratic. Let them resist equals let me persist. And here's a wonderful quote by Winston Churchill that defines this, that states, if you're going through hell, keep going. Success tip number 3 is to release the illusion of control. Control is a coping strategy, not a solution. We can see this in the film with Perfidia, where she tries to control everything, and ultimately this leads to greater chaos. Specifically, we see this in the scene where the security officer does not follow her commands and she shoots him. This leads to her downfall and the downfall of the organization as a whole. The key concept here is let them go ahead and just do what they're going to do. They're going to do it anyway. There's no sense of getting upset about it and then leading you to act irrationally. Let them act equals let me respond intentionally. And here's a great quote from Marcus Aurelius that states, you have the power over your mind, not outside events. Success tip number 4 is to choose responsibility over blame. Responsibility gives power, where blame only gives the illusion of comfort. In the film, we see this again with Lockjaw as the example. We see that he gets sucked down and stuck into resentment. And the resentment causes him to stay trapped in the same cycle over and over again. We can also see this example with Perfidia and how Perfidia seems to think that everyone wants to control her. And her resentment towards her belief that everyone wants to control her is what causes her to get stuck in the same cycles over and over. The key element from the book here is let them be imperfect. Your growth is not dependent on them. And here's a quote by Winston Churchill to illustrate this. The price of greatness is responsibility. Success tip number 5 is to walk away from endless battles. Not every conflict deserves your energy. Some wars continue to repeat because simply no one is brave enough to disengage. We see this play out multiple ways in the film, both with Perfidia and what she does and what the resistance does, and also on the side of the police. The key concept from the book here is let them argue, let them escalate. Peace is a strategic choice. Let them fight equals let me step away. As Sun Tzu says, choose your battles wisely. Success tip number 6 is stop waiting for closure. Closure is something you give yourself. It's not something that you obtain or get from others. And resolution never comes from others doing the right thing. So please stop looking for it. We see this in the film, particularly with Willa. We don't see her get upset when she finds out that her mother's not dead or that her mother was a rat. She just simply moves on. She doesn't need any closure. The letter at the end of the film is nice, but Willa does not need that. Willa makes her own decisions, and Willa does not need closure to move forward. The key concept in the book is let them leave things unresolved. Here's a quote from Paulo Coelho: "Some doors close without you getting to say goodbye." Success tip number 7 is to redefine strength as emotional regulation. Strength is staying grounded when chaos invites reaction. We see this in the film where the calmest characters are the most powerful. Particularly, we see this with Sensei Sergei. He remains cool, calm, and collected. And this not only gives him power, but it allows him to continue to think rationally and make good decisions. The key concept in the book is to let them provoke you. Let them trigger equals let me stay calm. Let me stay regulated. And through that emotional regulation is power. And as Confucius says, he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. Success tip number 8 is detach from outcomes you can't control. Focus on efforts, not results. Obsession with outcomes blinds characters to meaningful progression. We see multiple examples of this in the film with Perfidia's obsessions with the Resistance and Lockjaw's obsessions with her and his obsession with finding and eliminating Willa. And it doesn't matter which character you look at, whether it be Perfidia or Lockjaw, their obsessions lead to their downfall. Let them choose equals let me commit to my values. Success tip number 9 is allow people to be who they are. As people reveal themselves, believe them. Avoid projecting traits on them that they simply don't have or expecting them to change. We see this play out in the film when Lockjaw expects Perfidia to change. Lockjaw expects her to change and accept its new life was a big mistake and ultimately resulted in the exact opposite of what he wanted. The key concept in the book here is let them show you who they are. Let them be themselves equals let me set boundaries. And here's a quote from Maya Angelou: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And success tip number 10 is choose inner peace over being right. Peace is more productive than righteousness. We see this play out in the film when Perfidia walks out on her baby and Ghetto Bob. Instead of Ghetto Bob getting upset or losing his head, he simply lets her be right and tells her, go do the revolution, baby, go do the revolution. In doing so, he remains at peace and builds a stable environment to raise Willa. The key concept from the book here is let them be wrong. Letting them be right or wrong equals letting me be free. And here's a quote from the Dalai Lama that illustrates this, that states, better to lose an argument than to lose your peace. In conclusion, why these two pair well is because one battle after another shows you the downfalls that will occur if you keep fighting, whereas the let them theory explains how to stop and what the benefits are from stopping, because ultimately the battle only ends when you stop participating. Well, that's it for tonight, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. Please click like and subscribe. Please share this with a friend if you know anybody that's interested in personal development and success tips. And comment below of how you like the film and what success tips you might have gained from the film that I may have missed. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to dedicate this episode to Adam LeWoo. He was a pioneer on YouTube and will be sorely missed. Rest in peace, Adam. And please be sure to check out my next video. And as always, my prescription is try out 2 of those success tips and call me in the morning. Have a good night. Bye-bye.